welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark's a must listen.
That's where I go to get my hoops fix.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
All right, welcome in, everybody. Monday night, we are kicking off the week. Field of 68 After Dark, about midway through the season at this point. We are getting into the meat of conference play as we are rolling along. We had a couple of games tonight. Not the sexiest night of basketball, a couple of interesting ones-ish in the Big Ten, but we're going to kind of set our focus on the bigger picture as we're about halfway home. I got some wonderful people with me today. The great Jarrell McNeil of Marquette fame, he's wearing the best ball cap. He's got the sock cap on. I got my Frank Thomas jersey behind me. Over here, you are speaking to my heart, my friend. And another guy speaking to my heart. We got Matt McCall, the coach.
Grove 23. Grove 23. Come on, Chowder. Come on, Tony. Grove 23, man.
I got my Rodman jersey right there, right? If I can move my head. So everybody's speaking to my heart. I love that. Good to be with you both today. We are at an interesting point in the season. And I kind of want to start there, and then we're going to morph into, how we feel about some of these teams and Tennessee being number one and, winning it, crushing Arkansas over the weekend. But for both of you guys, as a player and a coach, and Jarrell, I'll start with you. When you're at the midway point of the year, and let's say things are going really well, or maybe they're not going really well, what is a player thinking? Do you have to change anything at this point? Are you kind of locked in? Like, where are you right now midway through the season?
At this point of the year, it's really just when you start to kind of get in the groove. I feel like as a player, it's after you get through the non-conference part of the season. Usually have a couple big games here and there, depending on what kind of schedule you have. And then as you kind of get into the conference season, that's really like the meat and potatoes, especially if you're in one of the better conferences or a power conference, because you're going to get an opportunity going into the conference play. You're going to be dealing with, in some cases, teams that you're going to be playing twice with home and aways. And then, and it's a little bit different for every conference as well, too. But you got to keep in mind that, you're going to have the opportunity to get some quality wins. You also had the opportunity to drop some tough games, get some bad losses as well throughout that stretch. So I think at this point of the year, it's kind of up in the air. I said it the last time I came on. I feel like you're just at the juncture of the season where it's like everybody still has a little bit of hope left in their eyes. They know that they can turn their season around. It's not too late. It's not early yet, but it's still not too late to kind of turn things around and make a run at things and fix things before you get down the stretch end of the season.
Yeah, McCall, it's an assessment time, I would think, for all the coaching staffs at this point.
Yeah, you know what, Pony? Like, it's when you get to this point in time of the season and it's conference play and you haven't figured things out yet with your team and your culture and everything, like, it's just one day at a time. One day at a time. Like, how are we going to be on this game? How are we going to be on the next game? Like, how are we going to be in practice the next game? Like, that's the biggest key. You just got to take it one day at a time. And the teams that have figured it out, and I know we're gonna get into some of the top teams in the country. It's just, hey, look, we gotta continue to practice. We gotta continue to compete. We gotta continue to compete at a high level and build on our culture. And when we drop one, which, and I think Maryland's a good example of this. I mean, Maryland right now is 1-3. They're going back home in the Big Ten. I mean, the Big Ten, I think, is the second best league in the country right now. When you look at the metrics and you look at all the teams that are in that league, they've got to get back to work. And you can't lose your team. You can't lose the work that you guys have put into this and the practices and the players and everything. So I just think it's focusing on what is our culture, what are our values, what are the things that we're about, and continuing to get everybody about those types of things. And when something doesn't go right, don't deviate from that. Continue to focus on those things because you're going to lose games. Because these leagues, I mean, you look at the SEC, you look at the Big Ten, you look like these conferences. I mean, Maryland's going home 1-3, and they had to go all the way out to the West Coast and play 2 games out there. And they're a good team, and they're an NCAA tournament team, in my opinion. But it's like, hey, we lost these 2. Now we got to get back to work and don't deviate from the things that we're about. That's the thing at this point in the time of the season. January, as you inch towards February, hey, we cannot lose focus on the things that we're about.
Let's talk about some of these teams right now. And let's get into, we're halfway home. Can we trust them long term as we get closer to March, as we get closer to the tournament and the Final Four in San Antonio, Texas this year? Can we trust them? And the biggest team, Tennessee has been number 1. Tennessee's won every game. They've got some quality wins. They just hammered Arkansas over the weekend at home, put on quite a show in front of their home fans. They've beaten Baylor this year. They've beaten Illinois this year. They've beaten Miami and Syracuse and Louisville, Virginia. So they've got a nice collection. They've been dominant. We have a fun game coming up tomorrow on the road against a Florida team that just lost their first game. We've seen them play. The defense is great. Chaz Lanier has been outstanding. Zakai Ziegler's been there 100 years. Their guard plays great. But do we actually trust them, Matt McCall?
Pony, did you say he's been there 100 years?
What's that?
You said he's been there 100 years? He hasn't been there.
It feels like Ziegler's been there 100 years.
Does it does feel like it. It feels like it. Where's Dalton Connect? Where's Dalton Connect? Oh, he's playing for the Lakers. He's playing for the Lakers.
Exactly. Do you trust him, McCall?
I do, just in terms of their staff and the job that they do in the portal. Chaz Lanier, bringing him in, Dalton Connect, bringing him in. Like, nobody knew about these guys. Like, and Chaz Lanier at North Florida, Matt Driscoll has done an unbelievable job there for the Ospreys as the head coach. He's been there for a number of years. He took that team to the NCAA tournament a couple different times. But, their staff, they evaluate these transfers. Nobody knew who Dalton Connect was. Nobody. And this guy gets to them, and if it had not been for Zach Edey, Dalton Connect is the National Player of the Year. He's the National Player of the Year, 1,000%. And the Lakers should probably play him more, and they'd probably win more games. But I'm and then they bring in, it's just they do a great job of evaluating. I think Rick Barnes and his teams, and I know the knock is they don't get to the Final Four and they don't win games in the NCAA tournament and all that. Rick Barnes is an unbelievable coach. And Texas, ran him out of town, whatever it was. He gets to Tennessee, and what does he do? Just continues to win games. That's all the guy has done in his career as a head coach, win games. And it's super impressive. And it's what he's doing right now. And to think the fact that they're the number 1 team in the country after losing Dalton Connect, who could have been the National Player of the Year last year, it's unbelievable to see this. And this team's for real. And the SEC is for real. The SEC and the Big Ten, those 2 conferences, there's no gimmies. Not at all.
There's not any gimmies, and certainly it's going to be tough for Tennessee to get where they want to go this year. And I'm with you. I think Barnes is wonderful, and they've done a hell of a job, and he's done a wonderful job adapting. At the end of his tenure at Texas, people said, well, games passed him by. He doesn't want to play the AAU game. He doesn't want to recruit. And now look at the way he's adapting to the transfer portal era. It's been unbelievable. The thing for me, though, is at some point I want to see this team in the Final Four. I got to see Rick Barnes there, and I think he needs to see himself there. Rick Barnes hasn't been in the Final Four in, 22 years? It's been quite a while. And the Vols have never been there. They got really close. Remember that year with Bruce Pearl? where I think it was like a little layup there against Ohio State. I mean, they were that close to go into the Final Four. So this is a basketball program now that I think, like, Auburn's been there. Bama's been there. Tennessee needs to go, Jarrell, to the Final Four this year.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of a culmination too, because we've kind of watched kind of just, as Matt spoke to, just the job that Coach Barnes has done since going over to Tennessee, man. So they've stacked up the wins. They built up another great program, a program that's really been quite dominant over the last couple of years, and have had the right collection of talent to kind of get there. So I think they've been the team that's just been knocking on the door. So we all kind of just waiting for them to kind of just kick the door in, man, and finally break through. I think this could be the year as well, but on the flip side of that too, I'll say this, and this is probably being a little bit petty, but I think it's a little bit of the same issues year in, year out with them. And the only thing that I ever worry about with Tennessee is, okay, last year was Dalton Connect. This year is Lanier. But after those guys, if they have an off night or they can't get it going offensively, are they going to have enough firepower to carry the load? What happens once they get into a neutral court site game and the other team is just, for whatever reason, red hot and going crazy and hitting three-pointers from everywhere, and they get down 12 to 15 points in the game? Are they going to have a team and the makeup and the guys after their leading scorer that's going to be able to step up and erase a deficit as well, too? We know they can get it done defensively, but at the same time, just to make those type of runs, man, you're going to face some adversity. If you're going to get to a Final Four, you're probably going to have a couple close games, unless, you one of these teams like UConn has had some dominant runs the last couple of years. But for the most part, every other team, you're going to face some adversities. You're going to be down at halftime in some games. You're going to have some nail biters where it's a 1 or 2 possession game, or you're going to have to make a comeback or something. We need to know that they got the ability in a group of players that are going to be able to withstand a crazy run or just the madness of March. You know what I mean? So I think just as far as what they put on paper, though, you got to trust them. How can you not trust them?
Yeah, Jarrell, I think you made a great point, Jarrell. Like, when they get in a dogfight this year, and they really haven't been in a dogfight yet, but when they get in a dogfight, like, how do you handle adversity? It's coming. It's 100% coming. Like, how do you handle it? Like, when you're down 12 at the half, like UConn was yesterday. Like, look at UConn yesterday. And, coming out of Maui, everyone's like, oh, UConn, there's no chance. They have no chance of winning a national championship again. They went 0-3 in Maui. That was the best thing that could ever happen to UConn, because now Danny Hurley has their attention. And yesterday, they were down. And Providence was clicking on all cylinders. And UConn couldn't guard anybody off the bounce. What did UConn do in the second half of that game without Liam McNeely? They scored 60 points. They scored 60 points in the second half. So with Tennessee, it's like, okay, when it's crunch time and it's not going well, and we're on the road in the SEC, and the SEC – look at the Florida Gators. The Florida Gators are a good team. They're talented. I'm not saying this because it's my alma mater, but they're a really good team. And they went on the road to Kentucky, and Kentucky played better. And now they got Tennessee coming up. And then they have Arkansas coming up. It's like you just got to – look, there's opportunities there, but the league is tough. It is tough. And Tennessee will get pushed. And to Jarrell's point, it's like, hey, when it's not going well, how do you respond? And that's when we're going to find out who are the best teams in the country.
Well, so far they've been absolutely outstanding up to this point. And we'll see what they look like tomorrow. They might get one of those games they get pushed against the Florida Gators. And that program, who's had a hot start this year, they just came off their first loss of the year. So we're talking about, do we buy it or not? Can we trust these teams? Let's talk about Duke. Duke's a team that, they lost early to Kentucky. People questioned them a little bit, had a loss to Kansas. Kansas certainly not the team that we thought, but they beat Auburn. They're, 4-0 in the league play. They're coming off a really convincing road win. Cooper Flagg's everything we wanted him to be, and then some. They're young, Do you trust them at this point, Matt McCall? John Shire has himself a super talented team, but certainly a bunch of guys that can't get a drink at a bar.
Is Coach Shire healthy? Is he back?
You know what
Is he
I mean.
healthy?
No. You know
No,
what I
not
mean.
what I'm saying. He missed the last game. I just want to make sure he's healthy. Make sure he's
fantastic.
He's good. I trust him. I mean, Cooper Flagg is phenomenal. I think with Duke, this team's only going to get better. My only concern is the league is not great. And I think the three of us can agree with that. The league's not great. So Duke getting pushed and being challenged and playing games and high-level games, I mean, that would be my only concern with this team. Can they make a run in March with the league not being great? And it's not. And last year, what the league did with Clemson and NC State, I mean, it was phenomenal, but it's just not at the level that it normally is. That's my only concern with Duke. But I think Duke's going to continue to get better and improve because of how young they are. But that improvement and it's how much can they improve if they're not playing against high level competition. I respect what John Shire and his coaching staff has done in terms of their schedule and bringing all comers. And it doesn't matter. We'll play everybody. I respect that. And I think Cooper Flagg is the best player in the country. But once now that they're in conference play and they're not playing against everybody else, can they continue to get better and improve when some of these other teams in these other leagues in the SEC and the Big Ten, I just don't know. I don't know if they can get to a Final Four. That would be my only concern about them. But they are terrific.
Is that as important to you, Jarrell, because the ACC is not as daunting perhaps as the SEC? I mean, it's not like UConn. I mean, UConn crushed teams and, they obviously ended up winning the last two. So I'm curious if you view it the same way.
Good point.
I do, and I think it was actually a great point by Matt, because at the end of the day, and we kind of even spoke to this a little bit, talking about the last teams, is just sometimes, and he can speak to this as well too, even losing those games in the bright light games against, even matched talent-wise, other guys that are really good high-level players in those bright light games, the Auburn-type games, you can learn more from those games about your team than you can sometimes than just beating everybody by 20 or not really getting challenged throughout the course of the year. So I think it's a great point, and I do think that matters going into the tournament. When I played, I was in the, it was a 16-team Big East then, but man, it was a gauntlet. So it was like you were getting tested night in, night out, regardless of your competition. And I always felt like that usually those teams did better around tournament time because we were used to being in tough games and battling night in and night out. I think it just gets you a little bit more battle tested for sure. But just in terms of Duke, just in totality as a team, I think they kind of check all the boxes. Man for man, they might be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country, just from a talent standpoint. The thing that obviously worries me about them is the youth. And I'll just say it. Cooper Flagg has been phenomenal and has overserved for every bit of hype that he's had coming into this thing. And I got a chance to watch him the last couple of years, and I'm not surprised in the least bit. But it does worry me that he is the end-all be-all for them at such an early juncture in his career. And it's not because he's not talented enough to do it. I'll just say this. I feel like for them to make a Final Four run, and I was expecting this to happen going into the year a lot more, where one of those older guards was going to kind of take the bull by the horns. And they may not be number one because they're not not Cooper Flagg, but one of those dudes that either Proctor, and I thought it was going to be either him or Love coming into the year. And not to say that they've played bad, but they haven't had the impact more so than the group of young guys and the freshmen that have come in right now. So I feel like for them to reach their destination, it's going to take one of those dudes who've kind of been through it to ride shotgun at least and say, "Hey, I'm here with you, ready to make plays and make, you know what I'm saying, step up in big moments." Because
totally
even
agree.
the games that they lost, it's been here, Cooper flag, here goes the ball, go get us a look or create a a help situation where we could draw two and somebody can get somebody an open shot. And that's just a lot to ask. I don't give a damn how good he is for a kid that should be in his senior year of high school at the end of the day. It's a lot to ask to do that and make it to the Final Four.
Because Jarrell, you bring up a great point. Like some of the games they've lost, at the end of the game, it's like, hey, the floor's stopped. The floor's not moving. And he's got the ball and he's trying to create and make a play. And it's almost like, can somebody else do that when the game's on the line? Can somebody else do that? Because every coach in the country, if it comes down to a one-possession game, they know that the ball is going to be in Cooper Flag's hand. So how do they find somebody else when the game's on the line to make a play? Who is going to be that guy for Duke? 100%. I couldn't agree with you more, Jarrell.
I feel like it's a conversation that we used to have about John Calipari's Kentucky teams when the SEC was maybe a little bit down, but he had all these star freshmen, and were they going to be battle tested? Would they get good enough? I mean, I feel like it's a very similar conversation that we had in the past, and time will tell how this group plays out. Cooper Flag is really fun to watch, though. I'll tell you that. He has been a joy. He has been a joy. To your point earlier, I think Shire is going to be back tomorrow. So I think he's got some fluids in him and got himself a little meds and hopefully is okay. I had to have been serious for him not to coach an SMU
game. It had to have been.
Yeah,
serious.
I mean that's
absolutely
must have been kicking 100. His butt, but it's going around now. We're talking about teams that we trust. Kentucky has been fun. You know, I just mentioned John Calipari. This is the first year without him, and Mark Pope is Kentucky guy. He's got, Kentucky blue blood. And it's just been kind of cool to see, it's a bunch of new faces, but it's a bunch of guys that are, not from the heralded sexy programs, fun players. I mean, guys that we've seen have success at places like San Diego State. But this is a team that certainly has really captured the state's imagination. Can they, and defense is certainly a question, but can they, Jarrell McNeil, make a run to the Final Four? Dare we bring it up?
I think they can. And
it'd be cool.
And it's really the flip side of this, and how it would be crazy just for him to be able to, Coach Pope to be able to do that in his first year. But I think it's almost just a complete polar opposite almost of what we were just talking about with Duke. So Duke is young, and those are the guys. But this is an older team, man. It's an older team with a lot of guys who, they not necessarily. And I say this not to be facetious, just like they're not NBA lottery pick guys. They're not first round of the draft necessarily. Not to say that none of them are or won't be, or it's not possible, but just saying from a talent perspective. They're older guys. These are guys who have played a ton of college games. They understand the game. They high IQ guys, and they got guys that are all bought in, and they're all in on filling their role for Kentucky basketball. And when you get that type of synergy in a group like that, where there's not a whole lot of ego on that team, you could tell by the way they play. I think they got close to like 5 or 6 guys averaging double figures, man. They spread the ball.
They got 6 guys, Sherelle. 6 guys.
Yeah, coach.
Yeah. 6 guys average double figures. That's unbelievable.
They swing that thing around. He does a great job offensively. They score a ton of points. They get a ball inside. They can shoot the three. They check all the boxes, man. I think that's going to be the biggest thing. It's just are they going to be able to guard consistently and get enough stops? But this is a team that absolutely I feel like it's built for March. It's built for March, and obviously it'll be a little bit more pressure and a lot more at stakes once we get to around that time. And I'm sure those guys will feel a little bit added pressure as well too, with all of them just being on that stage for the most part for the first time. Like, it's different than just playing a normal NCAA tournament game. And I can speak for this personally. when you see those crowds and with Big Blue Nation. We played Kentucky in the tournament game, and it was like a road game. Like the way that they travel, like it don't matter where
Every
you
time.
at. It don't have to be.
It
I think
doesn't
it was in
matter.
California
Every
or
time.
something, man.
You can play. You can play at home, and it's a road
blued out.
game. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. It gets blued out, man. So it's like, it's going to be a little bit more at stake, a little bit added pressure for those guys. But I feel like this is a team that should do well around that time of year. This is a team I feel like is built for March. Now, anything can happen, but I'm definitely all in on them. I trust them.
Chris, for me, the most impressive thing is just how Mark Pope has handled this whole thing.
It really is.
And I don't like, and the three of you, we can all chime in, all three of us. Like, when he got the job, were we like, he's the guy?
No.
He's the guy for Kentucky?
No.
He's the guy just because he played there? Oh, he's the guy? And he has embraced it, and he is doing an unbelievable job. No, he is the guy. He is the guy. He was the right guy for the job at the right time. And all the expectations and all the pressure that's on him and how he's handling it and how he's handling his players and how they're playing the game of basketball where it's unselfish. It is so impressive to see. Now, look, to Jarrell's point, you got to win games. You got to win games in March. You got to win games in the NCAA tournament. That was the knock on Coach Calipari. It was, hey, he didn't win game. He didn't get out of the first round. He didn't get out of the second round. He lost these games, everything. So we'll see what happens. But credit Mark Pope because they're playing the game of basketball, in my opinion, the right way. The ball's moving. It's hopping around. They're unselfish. You got Kobe Brea coming off the bench going for 23 against the Florida Gators. And he's accepting his role. It's just it's great to see. They don't have the McDonald's All-Americans and the players that are, ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the country. No, they're playing the game the right way. It's opposite of what Coach Cal was doing. And that's not a knock on Coach Cal. It's just different. And it's fun to watch. How they play the game of basketball on the offensive end of the floor is fun to watch because they're unselfish. The biggest thing is can you sustain it? In this day and age in college basketball, can they sustain it? And can they win games in March?
Huge question. It's a big question. Let's quickly talk about another one as far as teams that we trust. Iowa State, Gilbert and company have had a hell of a year. Their only loss is to a great Auburn team by 2. They beat Marquette. They've beaten Iowa. They've beaten Baylor. They've had a nice little run here. Is this a team that we trust, Jarrell, long term?
Oh, absolutely. And if I'm being completely honest with you, if I had to pick who would win it all today, it would be Iowa State. I've got a chance to watch a ton of them. over the last couple of weeks from the Marquette game and even before that, because I actually got one of my kids that plays there as well too. So I've been tuning in a lot. But and just even from the last couple of years, man, they've got fantastic guard play. They get after you. They guard the hell out of the ball. And now they got a couple unicorns in the middle now with Joshua Jefferson and Jackson, man. So I think they another team. They check all of the boxes, man. And they have a huge margin for error. I've seen those guys win games in the 50s, with both teams turning it over close to 20 times, and them just wreaking havoc, just ugly knockdown, drag out type games. And I've seen them hang 90 on people. So it's they got tremendous scoring. They got rebounding, they defend, they got great guard play. Like, they check all of the boxes. And I'm completely all in on Iowa State. I would be shocked, absolutely shocked, if they don't at least make it to an Elite Eight this year. Like, and I think they're good enough to win a national championship. They're as good and playing as consistent and as well as anybody I've watched all season.
McCall, you agree? They haven't been to the Final Four since 1944.
Pony. Jarrell is anointing these guys. He's anointing them. He's anointing them.
On them.
Look, I think in terms of Iowa State and what TJ Osborne has done and his team, they've always been able to guard. They've been terrific on the defensive end of the floor. It's been like toughness, defense, no matter what, wherever he was the head coach. Right now, they're 33rd in the country in total defense. You know where they are in total offense? 9th. So to my man Jarrell's point,
pretty good balance.
I'm with them. I'm with them.
Balance.
They have a chance. I'm with them. Like now they got the offense figured out. Like if you get both sides of the ball figured out, you got a chance to win a lot of basketball games. And in terms of the Big 12, let's call it like it is. It's not the SEC. It's not the Big 10 this year.
Yeah, it's manageable.
They're going to win a lot of basketball games.
They're going to win a lot of games. Let's take a break. We'll come back. It is Monday. We are halfway through the year. Let's get to some overreactions. We've gotten a lot of crazy tweets about
I love the overreactions. I love
yes. It's coming up.
I can't wait.
Field of 68 after dark. Stay with us.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
All right, back on the Field of 68 after dark on this Monday. Chris Childers with Jarrell McNeil and Matt McCall. Time for some overreactions, and we are like halfway through the year, so certainly we have people that have some pretty interesting opinions on some of the things going on in the world of basketball. So let's start with our first one. Inside the Big Ten from CBB Picks Daily, he says that Illinois is the most complete team in the country and a favorite to make the Final Four. Certainly, Brad Underwood has done an incredible job of elevating the expectation for this program, but are they, Matt McCall, the most complete team in college basketball?
To say they're the most complete team in college basketball, I don't know if we can say that. I think Illinois can win a national championship. I really believe that. I'm looking at the Big Ten, and I'm looking at Michigan State, Michigan, and Illinois. I think that they're the top tier of the Big Ten. That they're in my top tier. I think Nebraska's getting slept on a little bit with what they've done and their resume. I think Nebraska's being slept on, but I think Illinois can win it all. And Brad Underwood, as a coach, continues to not be set in his ways. To me, that's the most impressive thing about Coach Underwood. It's not, hey, look, I ran this when I was the head coach at Oklahoma State, or I ran this when I was the head coach, or I ran this when I was an assistant coach at South Carolina with Frank Martin, the spread motion offense. No, the floor is completely spaced. And he went international with his recruiting and lost some players, lost some really, really good players. Terrence Shannon, terrific player. And their team is outstanding. I think they could win it all. I really believe that. I'm not trying to overreact here, but I think there's a tier in the Big Ten right now, and I'm looking at Michigan State, Michigan, and Illinois are in that top tier for me. And don't sleep on Nebraska because somehow those guys are continuing to win games.
I think they're possibly the most complete team. I'm not against it. And what
in the
he's
entire
done,
country?
they might be. I mean, you just said they could win a national championship.
I
and they
do.
play
I do believe that.
They play defense and they score the ball. They're complete too. I mean, I think much like we talked about with Iowa State, they have a chance. What I love what Underwood has done, though, and to me, this is something that, you know, if you have that pipeline internationally, if you can get the right kids, you're going to get skill set guys that you're not going to be able to get in the United States. They're not going to come to play in Illinois.
100%.
And it really
100%.
adds, yeah, and it adds something, Jarrell, and I think he's figured that out. He's adapted to that.
So pretty much the way that I felt about Iowa State, that's how you feel
about Illinois. Yeah.
and I think, Matt, I think you made a great point. You do got to give Coach Underwood some credit. I've watched it because it's another school where we had quite a couple kids down that way as well too. So I paid close attention to him, and we kind of get a chance to get out and see some games as well too. But he's turned over completely. I feel like almost even a little bit of the culture of the team and kind of the guys that they were going after and the makeup of their team as well too. I think it's a step too far, and I do think it's an overreaction to be shooing them in for a Final Four or a national title just yet. I do think they have some holes, but I'll say this: they're definitely one of the most complete offensive teams in the country.
Yes.
They run a ton of good stuff. They check all of the boxes. They can space the floor. They can shoot from multiple positions. They got good guard play. The only thing that scares me about them a little bit is I feel like they could be a little bit defensively challenged at times. You know, maybe not as physical as they used to be. Like, and I'll just say this because I know that was like one of his things, and I kind of like the slogan or what he used to call them. Like, he wanted everyday guys. These ain't everyday guys. I wouldn't say that. Some of these, you know, some of the talent that he has, these is once a year guys, you know, once in a lifetime guys. So it's like it's a little bit different from what he's done, but he hasn't been, you know, to his credit, he hasn't been too big or stuck in his ways or egotistical about just what he likes to do as a coach to you know, to kind of change with the times. And, you know, like you said, if you could dip into that European pond, I know from experience too, just playing overseas as well for some years, it's like they have a different regimen. Those guys are a lot more skilled traditionally than a lot of our guys that come out of high school around that time because they've been playing professional basketball since they were 12 or 13. Because, you know, if you're a good young player, that's what you do. You get moved up and you're playing with grown men from the time you're 14 years old on up. That comes with a different level of understanding and IQ and knowledge about the game and how to play the game than you'll ever get here in the United States. So they're definitely one of the best offensive teams in the country.
Jarrell, and to that point, like with like Coach Underwood, like he used to run that like spread motion offense where they used to set like hammer screens at the elbow and everything, and the floor was kind of congested. Right? Like they ran it because I remember when he was an assistant at South Carolina, I was an assistant at the University of Florida, and I remember scouting against it. And it's okay, the floor is kind of congested. We have to guard this way. And then he took it with him as a head coach. And now the floor is completely spaced. He's got 5 guys out on the break. He's evolved. And he's not like set in his ways of like, this is how we're doing things. We're only going to play this way. That, to me, is the most impressive thing. It's like, you know what? Hey, man, college basketball is different. I got to adapt as a head coach. I got to do things differently. And that's what he's doing on the offensive end of the floor. That is so impressive. And I give him credit to not be set in your ways. We're only going to do things this way because this is how I've always done it. This is how I've learned. This is what we're going to do on the off. I mean, it's fun to watch, and they are a fun team to watch how they play the game of basketball.
I give his athletic director. Go ahead, Jarrell.
No, I was just saying he's adapting, so I give him credit. You know, he's not bitching and complaining about things changing. He's changing with it. He's changing with it.
And I give his AD, Josh Whitman. a lot of credit because Whitman has definitely committed to this guy and given him what he needed. I mean, his NIL's good, his facilities were improved in a big way, so he has been and he got there and he offered him. I think the biggest thing he did when he got the job, he offered him $1 million more than Levy Smith was making, the football coach, and that let him know that they're going to be into this thing. And Illinois certainly has changed their program around. Next, overreaction. When he got there, my God, the celebration for the press conference, the Woo Pigs were out of control. They just lost by 24 on the road to Tennessee, and Danger Rand says in the aftermath that John Calipari doesn't have it anymore. I know Matt McCall's got something to say about
Why
this.
are you going to me on this one? Why are you going to me?
I just know.
Come on, Pony.
You're
Why are you going to me on this
You're
one?
a Cal fan.
Cal was great to me at UMass. I can't lie. I got to be good. He was great. I was nervous when I got the UMass job because I was a Billy Donovan guy, and we, went against those guys in terms of recruiting all the time, and Cal was great to me. I just, they have the talent. Something's a bit off. They have a big week. It didn't look great against Tennessee. They have won some games this season. They got the Gators coming in there into their building. Just got to figure some things out defensively. I think that's the biggest thing. They're always going to have talent. It's not going to boil down to how they can score. It's, can you guard? How are you going to guard a pick and roll? Like, what are you guys doing on the defensive end of the floor? I think it's an overreaction. I don't think the guy's in the Naismith Hall of Fame. So I don't think we can say that he doesn't have it anymore. He's won a gazillion games. But I think the defensive end of the floor for the Razorbacks is the biggest key. How are they going to guard? Because they're going to have talent. And the other piece of it is this SEC, man, it is
unforgiving.
And there's no gimmies. There are no – it's like, oh, man, we're going to go on the road today and we're going to be fine. We're going to line up and play this team and we're going to be okay. There are no gimmies. I mean, if you want to do like the bottom tier of the SEC, like you're going to put – who are you going to put in there? South Carolina? That's not a gimme.
No,
Vanderbilt's not a gimme. They just went on the road and beat LSU. There's no – what do you, in the terms of the bottom? So it is a gauntlet in terms of a conference, and that's a tribute to these coaches.
Jarrell, what say you about Mr. Razorback Calipari?
Yeah, I mean it's an overreaction in terms of doesn't have it anymore. I guess that just means what it is for you. And just in my opinion, Cal is he's still revered, man. It's different when Cal walks into a gym for these kids, and still to this day, even for other coaches and other people that are around the game, it's different once Coach Cal walks in. It's a handful of those guys in this game that are revered in that manner, and he still has it. And you see he still has it because he still gets pros year in, year out. He's getting the best of the best. He has talent, like Matt just said. He's already spoken to that. Like, he's going to continue to get talent. But, I mean, for me, that was always it with him. He's going to have guys that you're going to see in the NBA in the next year or two. What they do in between time, he kind of, I feel like he caught lightning briefly there when he was able to match that talent and maximize just winning at a very high level and competing for national championships. But that's not easy, man, especially when it's a revolving door and you got so much turnover now. And it doesn't help his cause where he traditionally done it with young guys who are not in college for a long time in a blend with some guys who are and still end up becoming pros to now, whereas, you got the transfer portal, you got NIL, you got the NBA still to worry about guys leaving. So it's just like, it makes it more difficult for him because he can't do it and win at the level I think that he's accustomed to, the way that he's built teams. So that's changed too. So I'm definitely interested. I think he still has it. He's still going to be able to get high-level players. It'd be interesting to see what they do this upcoming year, especially as far as like the transfer portal and trying to mix and match with some of these older guys who already have some experience with their young guys.
Yeah, and to that point, Jarrell, like the game has changed, and the transfer portal has changed games. But when John Calipari walks in a high school gym, or Bill Self walks in a high school gym, or Tom Izzo walks in a high school gym, there's an aura, right? Like who else creates that aura when they walk in there? Like think about that. Maybe Mark Few, Matt Painter, but like when those guys walk in the gym, it's like, hey, like
Hurley has it now a little bit.
Hurley, I would throw Hurley in that mix.
He's got it now, yeah, he's in there.
The Hurley's in there, like the dude is in the gym. Like when Calipari walks in the gym, he's still the dude. Like that's who he is. It doesn't matter where, what school he's at.
I feel
but Hurley, no question. Hurley,
I feel
no question.
I just think this is too John Calipari ass kissy for me. There's a reason they couldn't wait to get his ass.
I'm not kissing his ass. I'm just saying, like, I mean, when the guy walks in, I mean, I was in Madison Square Garden tonight. I mean, if John Calipari walks in Madison Square Garden, I mean, Floyd Mayweather was in there tonight. I mean, people would probably put the camera on John Calipari. No?
I get it. He's a big deal, but, like, to me, he's like Britney Spears. Like, he was a big deal. He was a big deal. Now he just makes his mouth look weird.
You just
now it's like
John Calipari to Britney Spears, Pony. That's what you're doing now.
I'm waiting for him to make odd Instagram videos around the holidays. Next time he loses to Tennessee by 26, it's going to be bizarre Instagram photos. All right, let's go to another overreaction. Indiana, the Hoosiers. They're constructed better without their leading scorer, without Malik. Do we agree, Jarrell, that Woodson's better off without their top guy?
No. Major overreaction. Indiana need every bit of help they can get, okay? So let's do this for Indiana, and let's just have all of the best players, our talent. Let's have our talent play, okay? Let's have our talent play. They spent a ton of money getting a lot of guys there. They put a ton of pieces together. Talent ain't the problem. So no, they not better without one of their best players, if not their best players. So let's just keep things in perspective here.
Maddie?
When the Hoosiers make shots, they win games. That's the bottom line. They shot 40% from three yesterday. How about the Hoosier fan base, though, in the Palestra? It was, I guess it was a home game for Penn State, right? Was it technically a home game for Penn State? It did not look like a home game for Penn State. It did not. There was so much red and white in that building.
I love that place.
But when the Hoosiers, as our boy Jeff Goodman says,
so good.
They can shoot. When they shoot, they win games. They win games. That's what Goodman says. They can shoot now. Well, yesterday they shot 40% from three, and they won. And guess what Penn State shot? 17%. I think they were 3 for 21. That was the difference in the game. So if Indiana's going to make shots, they're going to win games. And that was impressive about yesterday. I mean, Ballo was outstanding. His double-double, the game he didn't play, what's going on there, trying to figure that whole thing out. But he dominated the game. So, but when they make threes, they're going to win. That is the scouting report on the Indiana Hoosiers. 1,000%. Jeff Goodman has it pegged. They can shoot.
Goodman is the oracle that we all need in our lives to break things down. Let's be honest. Final one. Duke, the Blue Devils, the best team in the country. Whippersnappers. As the only team who is in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive efficiency. It's Duke. Duke, not Auburn. And Iowa State is in there as well. Dagan tells us that this tweet is wrong. But it's Duke who's the clear best team. Do we agree or not? McCall?
Go ahead, Jarrell.
Okay.
No,
go
I was
ahead,
about to
Jarrell.
say who got. I would disagree. And it's not a strong disagree because they're up there, close to being, one of the handful of teams that you could peg as one being the best team in the country. But right now, it's the Cyclones for me.
Ooh.
He's staying tough. Are you a Dookie?
I'm holding firm.
Are you duking it, McCall? The best? You're not.
I don't know if I don't know if I can put him as the best team in the country. I think the parity in college basketball right now is ridiculous. I think we could say 10 different teams could be the best team in the country. I think we could say Tennessee. I think we could say Auburn. I think we could say Duke. I think we could say Iowa State. Make a case for Kansas. I just there's too many good teams. But the two leagues, to me, that are separate from the other leagues in the country right now are the SEC and the Big Ten. And these teams are going to get battle tested over the next 6 weeks, 7 weeks, whatever it is, before we get to Selection Sunday, 8 weeks, however long it takes, the Big Ten and the SEC. So I think we'll figure out who's the best team in the country. And then when you get to the NCAA tournament, you got to get a little bit lucky. I mean, you have to be a little bit fortunate. I mean, the first national championship in 2006, when I was on staff at the University of Florida, I mean, we played South Alabama in the first round. We played UW-Milwaukee in the second round, and then we played George Mason in the Final Four. Like, you got to get a little bit fortunate. You really do. Unless you're UConn, which they were clearly the best team last year. It didn't matter who they played against. Devoured the entire tournament. Yeah. So, I don't see this season. There is. I think last year, when you looked at college basketball, there were two teams that stood out. Purdue stood out, and UConn.
Yeah,
that was it. That was it. Nobody else. You're not putting in that category as UConn and Purdue. You weren't. Maybe Alabama, but this season it's like, okay, how do you pick? How do you pick the best team in the country right now? I don't think you can do it.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. We will revisit some history. There's been all this talk this week about Derrick Rose getting his number retired with the Chicago Bulls. We'll go back to 2007 and a magical recruiting class. We'll talk about it next on After Dark.
There is no sport in America that is more difficult to follow than college basketball. It can be overwhelming. That's where the Field of 68 Daily comes into play. The Daily is your go-to source for injury updates, recruiting news, and transfer portal additions that actually matter. For just $50 a year, get access to the same information that your favorite team's coaching staff is subscribed for. Quality content can be hard to find in the college basketball space. The Daily is here to help you with that. Would you be surprised to find out that the Field of 68 is home to more than 35 podcasts? More than 25 team-specific podcasts that are hosted by the people that know what fans want the most. The Goodman and Hummel podcast, the DTF podcast, the A10 Insider podcast, and the Mountain West podcast. But wait, there's even more. The Field of 68 will be launching the ACC Insider podcast this year. Subscribe to this channel and come along for the ride.
All right, back here on After Dark on this Monday, about halfway through the season, our first week of January. It is January 6th. Chris Childers with Jarrell McNeil and Matt McCall. Let's finish up talking about some history here on the show today. 2007 was a magical recruiting class, and we found out over the weekend that Derrick Rose was going to get his number 1 jersey retired by the Chicago Bulls. A former NBA MVP, he led Memphis to a trip to the finals of the NCAA tournament. They had a 9-point lead with 2 minutes left to go and let that game slip away against Mario Chalmers in Kansas. But hell of a career, D Rose and company. When you look back at this recruiting class of 2007, some of the names are insane. I mean, Michael Beasley, Kevin Love, Eric Gordon, Blake Griffin, OJ Mayo, James Harden. I mean, we talking about a lot of decorated dudes in that recruiting class.
Robbie Hummel.
Robbie Hummel.
Robbie Hummel. Did we ever find the statue of Robbie Hummel at Purdue?
The King.
Did we ever find
King
that?
Hummel.
He's doing a game somewhere right now. What game is Hummel doing right now?
For
He's
sure.
doing a game. What game is he doing?
He's on TV somewhere.
sure.
I mean, it's almost midnight. Like Hummel, are you doing a game, or are you trying to fix your wedges in terms of your golf game? Like, what the hell is going on right now with Robbie Hummel? He's doing
He is the
something.
wordsmith.
What
of
was
our
his
generation.
ranking on that class? That's what I want to know. What
I
was
think
his ranking?
Hagan said it was like in the 50s, so not like yeah,
Okay.
not that
All right.
bad.
All right.
But
All right, not
what historically, where does that class stack up? And D Rose, kind of cool getting his number retired.
Yeah, I think it was really cool, and man, we were talking about it a little bit earlier, man. But just a hell of a class, a lot of really high level guys, a lot of fun guys who actually at this juncture went, for the most part, all those top guys went to college route. But the cool part for me is just because I was class of 05, so those guys were a couple years behind me, but I got a chance to see their impact as they came into college. And I think the cool thing about that is, like, all of those guys, for the most part, were on really good teams. Significant, like, teams that mattered, are surrounded by other really high level players and even pros in a lot of situations, man. It just made for a very competitive time. But yeah, again, major shout out to D Rose, man. And the city has had a lot of buzz the last couple of days with everything being announced with his jersey retirement. He opened up his flower shop and everything, and as well too, he did some stuff at his old high school at Simeon. He's been able to involve his son in all things like that. And he's also a former guy that got a chance. He's Adidas guy now, but he was the guy that wore the Mean Streets jersey as well too. Him and Eric Gordon. But a really cool class. But I do got a great story from that because we actually got a chance to run into one of those guys. And I don't know if I ever told you guys my Michael Beasley story. So when I was at Marquette, our 07-08 year, this was their freshman year because he's only there for a year, but I was going into my junior year. This was like when they first okayed the rule where Division I teams could do the private scrimmages. So we used to have to play like Division II or whatever it was for those first couple games, the exhibitions, but they okayed the private scrimmages. So this is our first year ever doing anything like this. It was new to everybody, but they signed like a home and away, a 2-year deal with Kansas State. And so the first year was at Marquette, and then we ended up going to Kansas State to Manhattan my senior year. But that first year, I just remember going into it, and you know how maniacal college is. Everybody still wants to win. We don't care if it's an exhibition. We were going over the scouting report like the day before we had the scrimmage, and I just remember they had everybody's clips, and for the most part, they had a lot of guys that had been there. They had college film, and they had everything chopped up. And I just remember them getting to Beasley, and I had never really seen them play. Seen him play like a little bit in the McDonald's game, and I just remember having the clips, and the edit of his clips was like 6 or 8 of the grainiest clips you will ever see from the McDonald's All-American game. Like, you could barely even see what was going on. It was just like they had no film on them. We really didn't have a great scout on them, anything like that. You just had been hearing about them. So we get into the game, and I'll just say this. By the time we were done, they kept all the stats and everything. And you know how they do it, Matt. They break it up. You do different games and situations and stuff. And usually at the end, you put the time on and you run. But they keep stats for everything. He finished the day with 40 points. I won't tell y'all who got most of those points. I'm going to keep names at bay. But I just remember the significant moment in my mind was just because Tom Crean was my coach at this time. So Coach Crean was absolutely livid. He's going nuts. You know, there's nobody in the gym
I
but the
can't even
coaches and
imagine.
the players.
I
Oh my
cannot
God,
even
he's going
imagine.
crazy. At our gym and our practice facility, he is going crazy. Somebody effing guard this kid. You kidding me? He's a damn freshman. And I just remember like doing that discourse because everybody could hear everything.
Yeah.
And this is when I knew Beasley runs back down court after like doing a crossover, step back jumper on somebody, hits it. He's like, can anybody? And I just remember hearing his voice go, ain't nothing they could do about it, coach. I'm Beasley, coach. I'm Beasley. I was like, yeah, he's out of his damn mind and he is cold-blooded. So I'm about to say, I don't know if you ever seen Pulp Fiction, the wallet that Sam Jackson had. That was Mike Beasley. So we got the prelude. We got the prelude to what was about to happen the rest of that year, a little bit before everybody else.
Awesome.
And I just remember going to that locker room.
Jarrell, was that Wally Judge on that team too?
I believe so.
Wally Judge on that Kansas
so,
City?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
That was Wally Judge and Mike Beasley.
I
Frank Martin, right?
I'm about to say, yeah. No, that might have been Frank Martin. Might have been. Was it Huggins still? I'm trying to think. Was it Huggins or was he already?
Might have been Huggy, yeah.
Because Frank Martin was an assistant on Huggins' staff. He's like his lead assistant before he got the job. Yeah, it's Frank's first season.
Year.
Okay, yeah. So yeah.
What about you, McCall?
He was cold-blooded.
What jumps out about 2007's group to you, sir?
I mean, what a class! I mean, OJ Mayo. When you look at that class, phenomenal. But to see Derrick Rose and what he's done, and we got confirmation from our producer Dagan. Robbie Hummel was 59th in the class.
Got a boy, huh?
Number 59.
Solid.
Still trying to take some money from him on the golf course. Haven't done that yet from Hummel, but looking forward to doing that at some point here. But to see Derrick Rose and his career with the Bulls, I mean, it's just, you know, when you see the clip of like LeBron and Shaq and everybody dancing on stage, and Derrick Rose was just all about business. He was all about business. And
that's him.
I'm a Joakim Noah guy because of who he is as a human being and being on the bench with him at the University of Florida and their relationship. And to see Joakim give the speech before they raised his jersey in the rafters the other day, I got emotional listening to Joakim talk, because I know right now, if there was something that I needed from Joakim, I could call him right now because of the type of human being he is, and he would do it. And he's just, and to see their relationship and those guys and the battles and the struggles, and, you know, Joakim didn't like when LeBron was dancing on the sideline, and neither did Derrick Rose. He didn't want to dance. He just wanted to win games and compete. And to me, it was awesome to see. So that class, when you look at it, it's impressive. But D Rose, man, congrats to you and your flowers.
Yeah. Congrats indeed. All right, boys, time to take it home tonight with our toast of the evening. I will start it first, get my water bottle out here, and I just got to go to Illinois and Brad Underwood. We were talking about them today as a team that can compete for big prizes. We saw them go on the road the last two games on the West Coast road trip and just handle business. They pummeled Oregon 109-77, followed that up with a nice close win, but a convincing one against Washington. They got Penn State coming up in a couple of days. They've done a nice job, we talked about earlier, of infusing that roster with some international flavor. And they got a chance. So to Brad Underwood, a toast to you, sir. Go ahead, Jarrell. Give me a toast after that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one because it just ended too. Let's go. Ohio State, double overtime victory against Minnesota. Yes, I'm still watching. We love college basketball here. So, yeah, they squeak one out against Minnesota. I think it just ended. So, a must-have game, obviously, for them. That's not one that they wanted to drop, but it's always hard getting a road wins in college, especially once conference play starts. So, toast to the night, Buckeyes.
Indeed. Take us home, McCall.
Give me John Blackwell from Wisconsin, the Badgers. John Blackwell, the sophomore. Unbelievable what he's doing right now. Don't sleep on Wisconsin at all. He had 21 points tonight. This team is for real. There's a number of teams that could win the Big Ten regular season championship. Wisconsin is definitely one of them. Blackwell, sophomore, toast to you. Great night. Keep it rolling.
A toast to you indeed. And we toast you out there who are watching us tonight. That's going to wrap it up for Jarrell McNeil, Matt McCall. I'm Chris Childers. Thank you for listening to the Field of 68 After Dark. See you guys.